Hey there, welcome back to Part 5. Thank you for taking the time. I hope this provides some truth to dissipate the lies that have been told. We're going to jump right into the Bryan Kent matter. For any of you who don't know, Bryan Kent was a lawyer who agreed to take on various Scientology cases. And it turned out that he abused one of his female clients, engaging in an inappropriate relationship with her. That person filed a bar complaint against Bryan Kent, which is a confidential document. And typically it's left to the bar to investigate the claims. But that was going very slowly. And the victim confided in Jenna Miscavige, who she believed was a good friend, and gave her a copy of the bar complaint on the promise that she would never disclose it. Of course, she gave it to Aaron Smith-Levin, and that document was then disseminated far more broadly. I was unaware that this document existed, though Aaron and his Flying Monkeys and Jane Doe 1 all knew that it was out there. It wasn't until some weeks later that the victim contacted me, tearfully telling me that she was afraid that they were going to release this document in order to harm me, that she'd been told this by Christy Gordon. And ultimately, that was why Christy Gordon withdrew from her participation in the so-called SBTV Foundation. When she told me about this, I called her lawyer and I asked her lawyer, what should I do? And he asked me not to say anything. He did not want to jeopardize the bar complaint. He did not want to jeopardize Bryan Kent being disciplined for what he had done. I contacted two other lawyers, not related to the case, not related to anything, and both of them counseled me not to say anything. I didn't, and I felt obliged not to, that it was the ethical thing to do. But eventually, Miriam Francis, of all people, got on YouTube with buddy Alex the Rabbit and put this out into the world. Now, Miriam is a very interesting person. When Leah and I first brought her onto the show, she had no idea that she was a victim. As crazy as that sounds, we shut down the production, brought in the LAPD, and sat with her as she explained what had happened with her father. And the detectives at the time said that it was astonishing to them that she didn't understand what a victim she had been. And it had not been for us, nothing would have ever begun to investigate her father. But Miriam decided that because I couldn't find a self-serving affidavit that her mother supposedly had written or had signed, having it written by a Scientology attorney, to cover her ass in the matter of the abuse of her husband, of her daughter, Miriam decided that now I was somehow completely evil. And I was really the one that was responsible for the assault on her, not her father. She never mentioned her father. But prior to that, what had happened was that Miriam had requested funds from the Aftermath Foundation for this experimental treatment for PTSD survivors. And that we had failed to come up with funds quickly enough for her liking, and that we wanted to have a waiver of liability should anything go wrong if we gave her money for that. She quickly connected up with Mike Brown. Mike Brown, the son of Rosemary, who the Aftermath Foundation had helped to escape from Scientology. Mike Brown had spent a lot of time with Claire Headley and I on the phone talking about what we should do and how we should accomplish getting his mother out of Scientology. And we spent many, many, many hours working on this. I connected him with the FBI in Los Angeles. We helped arrange ultimately to get her picked up and flown out of California to Pennsylvania. We spent and granted more money to Rosemary Brown than any other person in the history of the Aftermath Foundation, and gladly so. Gladly so. We were all so happy when she finally escaped. But Mike Brown decided at some point that me and Claire and the Aftermath Foundation were bad. It just made absolutely no sense. I had found him lawyers to represent Rosemary, and those lawyers got back all the money she had been swindled out of in the last 2 years that she was in Scientology. But that wasn't enough. Mike Brown wanted to file a lawsuit on behalf of his mother to collect damages. I spoke to the lawyers. He said the lawyers didn't want to do it. I spoke to the lawyers, and they said that they felt it was unethical to involve Rosemary in the last years of her life in litigation that she would never see the end of and never see any money out of. That it wasn't going to benefit her in any way. She wouldn't get anything new or more in the time that it would take for that litigation to complete, and that was just not something that they were willing to do. And I agreed with them. And apparently that was upsetting or unacceptable or whatever for Mike Brown. And shortly thereafter, he miraculously found out that his mother had seen me while she was ironing with Ronnie Miscavige in the apartment that we shared, and that therefore I was responsible for the abuse that she had endured. I had absolutely no idea what this was about, but it was obviously enough to make Mike Brown want to side with Miriam and follow the Pied Piper of Smith Levin to the hallowed land of a YouTube celebrity. It didn't work out that way, but that's the truth about what really happened. Along with that truth is the fact that the exposure or the premature exposure of Bryan Kent has resulted in him never being prosecuted. It will never happen now. The bar never wants to do anything that they don't have to do. And when we learned of what had happened in the bar complaint, we held an emergency board meeting of Child USA. We determined that we needed a response from Bryan Kent, demanded one from him. Instead of responding, he resigned from his law firm and resigned from Child USA. We put out a statement condemning him, but now there's no reason for the bar to go forward, and I am pretty sure that it never will. Weirdly, recently, Miriam Francis has taken the position or made the allegation that when I was joining the board of Child USA, they were contemplating having Ghislaine Maxwell join the board too. 2 minutes of Googling would have shown that Child USA presented its highest award to Brad Edwards, the person who brought Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell to justice. And not only that, his partner in doing those actions and bringing him ultimately to prison was Brittany Henderson. To this day, Brittany remains on the board of Child USA. The person who brought down Jeffrey Epstein. This is how wild and crazy the lies that get spread out there are. And unless someone takes the time to check out whether these lies are true or not, they just sit there as, well, this is what happened. At the time that this all blew up, I offered Child USA to step down if they thought it would be helpful to their avoidance of the scandal. The chairman of the board of Child USA and the executive director responded to me with literally, fuck them, not listening. We don't care what those people say. We know what you have done. We know it's not your job to do anything other than the work you're doing for Child USA, which we continue to value. That is, in a nutshell, the story of Bryan Kent. I, in some ways, did one thing wrong in that I did a post in response to the first allegations made by Miriam called "It's Never a Bad Day for a Good Smear." And to some extent, I regret that now. I probably should have just stayed silent, but it is what it is. I can't change the past. Things just reel out of control in this wild world of YouTube and the internet. And this series of videos is my attempt to put some truth out there and some sanity into the craziness that's happened. I also note that Miriam apparently recently stood up and said how proud she was for having been responsible for getting me removed from the board of Child USA and the Aftermath Foundation. Sorry, that isn't what really happened. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you taking the time. I hope that this has, for at least one person, put some truth there that will prevent them from being hurt also. Thank you.